Welcome to Lost and Found, No More Secrets with DNAngels. If you're new to the world of DNAngels, we are a search angel nonprofit organization on a mission to bring closure and connection to individuals seeking to identify their biological parents via their ancestry DNA results. Whether they are NPE, meaning not parent expected or non paternal event, donor conceived, adopted, or they just never knew who their biological parent is. Our goal is to provide guidance and support every step of the way. Join us as we embark on journeys of discovery, compassion, and the profound importance of knowing one's roots. My name is Heidi, and I'm delighted to be here with you today. As one of the team lead genetic genealogists at DNAngels, I've had the privilege of being part of incredible journeys of self discovery and reunion. I'm thrilled to have a very special co host joining me today, none other than Laura Olmsted. Laura is not only an incredible individual, but also the driving force behind DNAngels. After experiencing her own NPE discovery years ago, Laura didn't just sit back. Instead, she channeled her experience into action, founding DNAngels and serving as its executive director. Through her tireless efforts and unwavering determination, Laura has turned her own personal journey into a beacon of hope for countless others in similar situations. Thanks to Laura's dedication, the team at DNAngels has been able to provide over 5,700 individuals with the answers they've been seeking about their biological heritage. Her passion for making a difference in the lives of others is truly inspiring. Hello, Laura. How are you today?
Hey, girl, I am so good. I'm excited about today. Are you excited about
I'm
today?
excited too. It's a little bit different because we're not having a client story, but we're trying to cover every type of misattributed parentage situation. So we've had adoptees, we've had NPEs, we had a foundling, and so this is our first time getting to touch on the donor conceived topic, which is you and I love working the DC cases. Everybody knows that.
Right. We're pretty much the DCP special team.
We are.
We rarely let other people, join us on those cases just because we like them so much. And, you get a feel for a specific genre of clients, and you become a specialist in that area. And that's really what we've done. So, yes.
Yes. So this is going to be airing in July. July is a special month for us. Do you want to talk about why, Laura?
Well, July is. So we only run a couple of fundraisers a year. What is free to our clients is not free to us. So a couple times a year, we have, public fundraisers to help us meet our budget for the following year. And our budget next year is $150,000 in order to keep the lights on around here and, help the people that we anticipate coming through our doors. So in July, we have a fundraiser called Christmas in July because we kind of tie that into Christmas. And so what we do is when you give us a donation, we give you a gift. So at pretty much every single level of gifting, you get a gift. So we've got anything from any gift over or under $50, gets a friendship bracelet, which I think, do you have yours on today? You could be our model. Thank you very much. So those are in our colors, purple and green. And those are supplied by Knots and Beads by Skylar, which is a small business in Texas where Heidi's from. And she's also the granddaughter of one of our longest volunteers. So we always try to support a small business during our time of giving as well. And we chose Skylar this year. And everybody that donates to DNAngels will get, a token of our appreciation. You'll get those friendship bracelets. And then at $50, you'll get a Tree of Life necklace plus the bracelet. At $100, you'll get a t-shirt plus the Tree of Life necklace plus the friendship bracelet. Hear the theme, the 12 days of Christmas. So, on the 5th day of Christmas. And then we've got like 250 is kind of exciting, right? Because that is a boot camp with DNA Angels. If you ever wanted to understand what you're looking at when you're looking at your DNA matches and how that coordinates to your tree, you want to sign up for my boot camp. I'm going to limit this to 25 people. I cannot teach bigger classes than that because there are so many questions at the end of a class. So it is limited to 25. They will be recorded. So if you can't particularly meet that class, it will be sent to you. There'll be handouts and homework with it. And there will be, I said last time, two classes, but there's three. So it's 3 1-hour Zoom classes. And during that, you will be able to ask me live questions about what I've been talking about or teaching you that day. And that's a value of well over $1,000 to get, that type of one-on-one training with an expert in the field. Then we've got a brick wall jump starter package for $500. We've got a family history poster gift at $1,000, and it's just too much to explain here. But if you're interested in Christmas in July, please go to DNAangels.org and press donate and become a fiscal donor for us. We would love to have you. Also, subscribe to our newsletter while you're there, because that's how you get all of the information coming out of DNA Angels for our comings and goings throughout the year.
Great. Those are awesome prizes, especially that boot camp. That's really exciting.
It is.
I would like to give us an introduction to our special guest today. How does that sound?
Go for it. Let's get them out here.
Next on Lost and Found No More Secrets, we have 2 special guests who are making significant impacts in the donor conception community. First, we have Laura High, the self-proclaimed donor-conceived person of TikTok. Laura uses her platform to raise awareness and share her unique experiences, shedding light on the complexities and emotional landscapes of donor-conceived individuals. Joining her is donor Dylan, a dedicated advocate in the donor conception space. At the beginning of the pandemic, Dylan was contacted by over 40 mothers of his donor-conceived children, leading him to connect deeply with his biological offspring. He now travels the world to support donor-conceived people, recipient parents, and donors, while advancing legislation and creating resources to humanize the industry. Together, Laura and Dylan will share their journeys, insights, and the importance of support and transparency in the donor conception community. Don't miss this enlightening and heartfelt episode. So without further ado, let's welcome Laura and Dylan to the show. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've been really excited.
Thank
I had a moment when Laura and I were talking about the YouTube show and upcoming guests. I said, Laura, we've got to have Laura and Dylan on the show at the same time. There's so many exciting things to talk about with y'all.
Absolutely. Now you got 2 different perspectives that parallel each other.
Right. So Laura, I want to start with you. Can you share your journey as a donor-conceived person and how you became known as a donor-conceived person of TikTok?
I still am not 100% sure, to be perfectly frank. It's still a little bit of a whirlwind for me. But so I'm donor conceived through sperm donation. My parents told me when I was 14, specifically my father. And they always knew they were going to tell me. I was conceived in 1987, born in 1988. So there were no resources for parents at that point. So they were figuring out with my pediatrician, when is the best time to tell me? So it was always going to happen. And they all kind of decided that 14 would be a good idea. And even though in today's terms, we would consider 14 a late discovery, that was like insanely progressive for my time. So it's something where I'm extremely grateful that all of them were like really actively trying to be like figuring out how to do this. And I'm very, very grateful.
Do you remember how you felt whenever your father sat down and told you? What was your reaction?
So he told me in the car, because that's where all dads share important information, because he didn't have to look at me and he could control how long the conversation was. It's a full dad move. And I'll never forget, we were in the car and he just kind of was like, hey, Laura, do you know how babies are made? And I'm like, Dad, I'm 14. I've seen Skinamax. He just was like, well, you know how me and your mom struggled with fertility? Because I knew that they did. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, a little bit more than that. And he was like, so do you know what donor conception is? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, this, like, and then he was like, yeah, sperm donor baby. And I remember sitting there, and it was a feeling of, I could see the Matrix, because I always knew something was up. And it's a very common feeling among donor conceived people, where it's like, you swear, it's like, was I switched at birth? Why does something just feel off? And you can't, but it's like, you see the pregnancy photos, you see the hospital photos, so you're like, I can't, what happened?
Did they try to match your dad with your donor? I know sometimes they try to match the physical characteristics. Did they do that in your case?
Yeah, so I was made before donor catalogs were a thing, and so they said that we'll match the donor to your father as best we can, which they didn't do at all. That was a complete lie. So my dad is like Irish, Scottish, and he's blue eyes, and my donor is 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Wow. Very like he has more like auburn hair, and so like not even a little bit. And so for me, like, I sat with this information for just a very long time in my life, and I would like kind of be interested, then kind of back away, kind of be interested, back away. But at 30, my first sibling found me and came in contact with me, and that literally blew my mind, because I had no idea that was possible. And then I started digging into how the hell this happened. And then like a lot of donor conceived people, you just go, wait a minute, how unregulated is this industry? And it chose me. It is what it felt like. It felt like this world grabbed me by the collar and was like, you are going to talk about this now. And I just started talking about it. You can see literally the first pieces of me talking about it on my YouTube under a show that I used to do called Are You My Daddy pre-pandemic. And it just snowballed. And eventually I got up the courage to get on TikTok, and I quickly went viral, which really surprised me. And I just kept talking, and I kept interviewing, and I kept asking donor conceived people, donors such as Dylan, anyone involved in the industry, recipient parents, go like, what the hell happened here? Why are so many of us just lied to? Like, this is incredibly insane to me. And it's just, I literally am just walking the path that I feel like was given to me.
Let's go back to your donor. Now, have you identified who your donor is?
Yeah, I know who he is. I know who, but he has, I have contacted him now twice. My donor conceived sibling has also contacted him once. We've not gotten any answer. The reason I was able to find him was I got in contact with his cousin, and she was very sweet, very nice. She knew very little about him. She very kindly and sweetly was like, yeah, I've been no contact with him for a very long time. He's not the nicest. And I was just like, oh no, okay. And she was being very sweet about it. And yeah, if I go stalk his Facebook, it's not the, let's just say him and I don't share the same ethics or morals.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was a blessing that he didn't respond to you anyway.
I mean, I would really like the medical history is really, I do. Yeah, I certainly, looking at who he is as a person, I have no interest in having any kind of like, even like a, email relationship. But I certainly would like the medical history. He is a doctor. He knows how important it is. And me and my siblings do have some very strange medical issues, and we really would like some answers to that. So that we would really like the answer back, which I completely believe that we are owed.
So how many donor siblings do you have?
I have only identified 5, but the guy donated for at least 6 years while he was a med student and as a full-fledged OBGYN. So it has been like estimated that I easily could have 50. But like, we have no idea if he was donating to banks, directly to clinics. There's so much mystery for us. I mean, I just found a sibling that is a couple of years younger than me. So our pod, it stretches from 1983 to 1990.
Now, did these donor siblings, did they know that they were donor conceived when they tested?
Not a single one.
Or you had to be the, hey.
Not a single one knew. Not a single one. Yeah.
Wow.
Not a single one knew. It's been awful. The fact that I'm the only one who was ever told. I feel horrible for every single, and they all took a DNA test just for fun.
Right.
I feel horrible for them that's how they found out. And two of my sisters who are full sisters, they found on DNA, they took the DNA test and like, what the hell is going on? They showed their parents and they're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. They must have switched the vials or something. It was oh my gosh, we're victims. And then eventually they're like, okay, yeah, no, we did donor conception. Like they actively tried to like pass it off. So it's like the parents like really pushed like that narrative for a very long time, which is horrible.
Right.
Well, that kind of stems back to, the way that donor conception came about. The doctors really encouraged the parents to never tell.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit and the research that you've done on that.
Totally. So it's been like up until about the 2000s, doctors were actively telling patients never tell your child that they're donor conceived. That was the advice they were getting from their parents, which is absolutely heinous. It absolutely is. I mean, there's a lot of complicated discussions we can have about donor conception. There is nuance. There is gray. There is not gray with this one. This is your kid needs to know. For the main reason alone is medical history. I mean, one, it's your child is a full person with their own autonomy. This is their body. This is their DNA. This is their blood. They have the right to know what their genetic origins are. And in my opinion, if you spent that much time, financial and emotional labor on how you guys became a family, why on earth are you keeping it a secret? It automatically adds shame to who the child is. It builds that in and it perpetuates this stigma. But also your child is then for the rest of their life going to give a false medical history. Who they think is their biological parent who ends up not being a biological parent, they're going to say that that's their medical history. And that's put donor conceived lives in grave danger. Where we know donor conceived people who think that like, their dad is their biological father and their dad has like a specific kind of like cancer or something. So they've been getting tested, very worried about that. Come to find out their donor has none of that. They never had to be worried about that entire time. And they've held all this anxiety. And also the exact reverse. Their father, who they were raised with, is completely healthy. They've never worried. Come to find out their donor's family has a risk of strokes, heart attacks, cancers. And now they have to go in. They're scheduling all these screenings now and going, holy shit, I had no idea. And now they also have kids. They've passed this on. There's one donor conceived person I know who found out their donor has a particular kind of heart failure. And they not only did her cardiologist schedule her for a particular kind of echo, like immediately, she was like, you have to get your 2 boys in for echoes now.
Yep.
And she was like, they're in like elementary school. What, are you serious? And they're like, yeah, they may want to be swimmers. If they need it, we have to know now. There's other parents who also have found out other problem, like other, I need to keep some details a little quiet right now, but there's another group of parents who just found out that half of their sibling pod has a very serious illness that if the kids have it, they can't do contact sports. It's going to prevent certain kind of medical treatments that could end up causing huge medical complications. So it's stuff like that that can really like drastically put your child at risk if you don't need.
How do you see organizations like DNAngels playing a role in supporting donor conceived individuals in their search for biological connections?
Literally, they're everything. I think I easily once a week probably sing the praises of DNAngels to somebody, going like I would walk through fire for DNAangels because literally, I mean, Laura knows. Like I've called Laura up, being like, Laura, I have a new case. I need you to. This is top right. Like, oh my god. I mean, the amount of times where I've called Laura, I'm gonna need your help. Oh my god. There was one case in particular where like I couldn't give Laura any details. I just literally called Laura and was like, Laura, we have a massive case on our hand. I just need you to make this top priority. I can't give you details on it. Just please, I need you to do this one. And Laura was like, okay. And then it was like afterwards, after like we officially like got everything, I could then tell her what it was for. And Laura just, I could hear like jaw on the floor. the fact that DNAngels literally can help connect people with their genetic origins not only can be incredibly emotionally healing, it literally is life-saving, and it has solved cases. Like, we've used this for news media, for court cases. It's genuinely, because DNA doesn't lie. And the fact that we can use the DNA to prove fertility fraud, which is a pretty big one, we can use it to prove like fraudulent medical histories, overuse of a donor, all of these things is just, it's incredible that we are able to do that. And the fact that it's a nonprofit and that everybody has the ability to connect to their genetic origins, it literally is life-saving. And as more and more people are finding out that they're donor conceived every single day, it's genuinely a life-saving group.
I'd like to hear from Dylan. Dylan, tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a part of this community.
Yeah, I donated on and off in college and grad school, and more or less put it at the back of my mind until I was told a few years later that the number of births had jumped up to over 50 births. So I didn't know it at the time, but this impacted me very deeply. I had no supports or anybody to talk about it with, but I was sort of carrying around this knowledge that I had 50 biological children. That number, sure enough, kept going up, and by the time that that the pandemic rolled around, it's on the first day of a new job, my colleagues and clients filing into the office around me, and I get an Instagram message from a woman that I didn't know. And it turns out she was one of the recipient parents of my donated sperm who was reaching out to introduce themselves, her and her family, and say that they are open to connecting with me. So I click over to her profile and see a picture of my biological daughter for the first time. And
What was that like?
It changed my chemistry. You know, it's something that I was, I mean, I was trying to hold back tears in the office, so I wasn't known as that weirdo who cried on his first day at work. But I think I failed. I'm pretty sure I failed, but I'll ask them if anybody noticed. But so I had been raising a little boy with my ex who was not of my biology, but another man conceived him. I raised him from age 2 to 7. So I understood the power of showing up for a child in whatever ways that I could. So seeing this little girl, it was as though it was, uh, this beautiful opportunity to connect and share love and create new memories with a whole new family. It turns out there were 20 other families who were in a Facebook group with this family, all of whom had chose me as their sperm donor. So I started to realize, whoa, I have this incredible opportunity to not only connect with these people, but to share information with them. I knew I had only written a paragraph about myself, shared a little bit about my family and my medical history, and I certainly knew how inquisitive young children can be. So I thought, hey, here's my opportunity to help a bunch of families understand quite a bit more who their children are or where their children come from. And so I chose to connect and immediately was inundated with all sorts of questions and videos and pictures of the kids and we started to build this sort of community, and it's been a bedrock of my social uh, ecosystem for the past going on 4 years now. Once I started to connect with these people and recognize and realize how raising donor conceived children with this many siblings has impacted their children's lives and their own, I started to realize, well, this is something that I need to share with the world and talk about a good bit more. Not to mention sort of a general lack of resources for recipient parents going through the process. There are some wonderful people in the space. Thank goodness you all are here because making these connections are just so important. But it felt very important for me to start to talk about how I got here and help other young people who are considering becoming donors recognize what it actually is they may be signing up for, which is quite a bit more than what I was told about the situation, which is yet another thing we need to change about the industry. A lot more education needs to happen. I feel like we could do it in conjunction with you all, actually. You all have great insight into what it's like for donor conceived people to go from in the dark to having all of this really, really important information. I've watched it happen. I've actually communicated with some of your clients before and after, and I'm just amazed at the difference between the before and the after, energetically, from their language, you name it. Like there's a lot to be gained
Right.
from what you all are doing.
Well, I know one very positive thing that has happened out of your situation is DCP data. Can you explain what DCP data is to our viewers?
Yes, so DCP Data is an online platform connecting donor conceived people and their parents to important genetic information, including up-to-date medical histories from participating donors, parents, and genetic siblings, as well as all sorts of things like a donor contact timeline where you can keep track of who has reached out to the donor and what the outcome of that outreach was, so that you can more strategically plan this connection and make sure that you're not risking the loss of a very important connection by sort of getting wires crossed and over communicating or sending a bunch of different messages, things like that. And what I love about the platform that I helped build is that it's built for donor conceived people with donor conceived people every step of the way, guiding what features they want to see. So there are ways to communicate and connect, uh, from direct messages to an online forum. And for recipient parents, we recognize that not everybody is immediately willing to share the identities of their children or themselves. So we've given this platform, we've embedded consent into every step of this platform. So you are able to consent to whether or not you share your identity and your children's information. You do not have to post pictures. We certainly encourage direct connection, and we do not allow anonymity. So you do have to share your first name and last initial. But if you are easing your way into the world of donor conception and you want to test the waters of what it's like to connect with the other folks who chose the same donor, guarantee your children will appreciate it. And I know from talking to my good friend Laura High here and many other donor conceived people that this is the what leads to the best mental health outcomes for everybody is connecting like this. So if you want to do so without revealing your identity, you can on this platform. And there are just so many ways that DCP data is responsive to a lot of the problems that Laura High has highlighted here today.
And another service that you provide is if they have not identified their donor yet, they get connected with me. And so I've had a lot of fun solving your cases that have come through DCP data.
And my inbox afterwards, I'll reach out and I'll check in with them like, hey, I hear Heidi found your genetic parent. Like, how are you doing? Just to check in with them. And my goodness, Heidi, I mean, if I ever need encouragement to continue doing the work that I'm doing, I just look at those messages that I receive from your clients here. They say, thank goodness I found DCP data because Heidi at DNAngels helped find my genetic parent, and I've my this one woman said, my goodness, my son gets to grow up during these school years when he's going to be the most inquisitive, and I'm going to be able to answer his questions now. I'm going to be able to give him, the insight. He's never going to have to wonder fully who this person is that he comes from. So the earlier the better. I encourage everybody to reach out early and do this, particularly because the industry really obscures this information in some honestly nefarious ways. They'll either withhold the information or actively, put there's a whole system of laws in place preventing people from uh, from from being able to find this information, which I believe and Laura High believes and everybody here believes they deserve from birth.
So clarify this for me. I was wondering when I saw the case and I say dad, not dad, but donor is Joe Smith, and there's 4 siblings in that group. Do you identify the donor's first and last name? Where in that, I'm trying to figure out in my mind how that works so that when people test, they'll be able to find their donor. How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a proprietary matching algorithm that I can chat a little bit about here, where we you can enter the donor number and the bank at which they were a donor.
Mhm.
Now, they may have donated at multiple banks, so this is another way that DCP data is solving sort of the serial donor problem that we haven't really touched on just yet. But what can happen is many donors will donate at multiple banks, and so if there's a single database tracking just something at one bank, and it says they have 50 biological children, well, they could have 50 biological children at another bank as well, and that bank could distribute internationally. And so there could be many different numbers attached to this one donor. However, there's no central system, there's no international database that is tracking that information effectively. So what DCP data does is, if you have the identifying information, like you end up with when you work with Heidi very often here, is you can enter that identifying information, and it will automatically connect you with all of the donor numbers that are associated with that identifying information. We manually check on it just to make sure that everything is copacetic. But once we know that, okay, this person is the same as this person, we match all of the siblings
Gotcha.
from that donor together. So yeah, in this way, we're solving one of the biggest issues in donor conception, which is we just aren't effectively tracking the donors or the birds very well yet.
For that, right? I don't think that they really care about that. I think they care about the money they're making in the industry.
I would agree.
Yes.
It's the system how they sell vials, and the tracking system is, it just doesn't work, and they know it doesn't work. They're very aware, but to change it is going to cost them money. And they don't want to take a paycheck, so they're sort of faced like, do we take a paycheck or do we charge parents more as we transition, which they already charge an insane amount of money, and that's already gotten them in so much trouble with how much they do charge. Because what people don't really seem to understand is so donors are paid about between like $100 to $150 per donation, and that's for one donation, and then that gets split up into multiple sellable vials. So a lot of donors are like, well, I only donated for a few months for a couple of, for a few times, and it's like, yeah, that could have made, depending on how much you donated, that could have made 50 sellable vials though. And each of those vials are charged anywhere between like $900 to $2,000. $900 would be very cheap right now. It's all getting much closer to like $1,500 to $2,000 each. And then what they do is, like, a bank says, like, we have a 25 family limit, which means one donor is allowed to donate to 25 families. And so all these families purchase, like, all these vials, and it's not 25. It's not that they stop and just allow 25 families to purchase and then they wait. They just keep selling until 25 families report a birth.
Report a live birth. Correct.
Report a live birth. And they're already aware at least 40% of families don't report the live birth. They already know that, yet they are not changing their model. And it is something, and people are starting to catch up onto it, because now these banks are introducing exclusivity programs like Zytex, California Cryobank, Seattle Sperm Bank just introduced family slots, and they're getting a lot of heat for it, which as they should. Seattle is saying we are charging an extra $700, and you can be one out of 25 families. And literally all these parents are coming and going, I emailed you 2 months ago and you guaranteed me it's a 25 family limit. What are you talking about? Now this feels like you weren't being, and they're like, oh, well, it pays for extra transparency. I'm like,
and it's just an upsell.
It's
It's
just
a
in
way to
myself.
make more money on the
Mhm.
same sperm.
And then you can't stop a donor, as Dylan said, from being a serial donor and donating at multiple banks, which is a huge problem right now, our serial donors.
Yes.
That market is absolutely out of control.
Agreed.
And so having
You
a
know, one
good,
thing we didn't talk about, and I hate to flip back and forth. Dylan, how many children are you up to right now? Live births?
a reported 97 biological children. So,
And what is your involvement in the children's lives?
yeah, I've been traveling around the world the last few years. I'm actually up in Canada at the moment, visiting a number of families up here in Ontario. I built friendship and trust with many of the parents as in the months following my immediate initial connection with them, and eventually we started to meet via Zoom, me and the children, and when that went well, we would meet in person. And so I now have relationships with 26 of the children. I met 26 of them in person. I'm meeting a new one tomorrow. It's beautiful to have all of these connections. The fact that there are so many makes it very difficult for me to sustain doing what I know is right, which is to show up for the children in some small way, in whatever way that I can.
Right.
Have you
It
tested on any of the platforms so it's easy for these donor conceived children to find you?
so by putting my story out there, and it was covered in the Wall Street Journal and in People magazine, was actually one family so far that has reached out just from seeing that. I've had one family reach out on 23andMe. That was one of the first things I did actually was go on 23andMe and share my 23andMe health and ancestry results with each of the families that had reached out to me. Now, I had a very difficult time reporting that to Zytex, the bank where I donated. I wanted to share it with the rest of the families because I'm only in connection with less than half of the reported families. And again, with the reporting policy, there could be more like 150 families and around 250 children.
That's
So
what I was assuming, like at this point. If you're at that many kids, like it's probably closer to 150.
yeah. So without sharing the health information to the families who without the information that I shared with the families I'm directly connected to, these other families are still left in the dark here. And Zytex wasn't allowing me to report. They said, "Are you sick?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just trying to show like some pretty important genetic predisposition stuff." And they're like, "Well, if you're not sick, we don't know what to tell you." So there was no mechanism for me to share this type of information with families that I'm not directly connected with. So it is uh, one of the issues is how do I connect with these families? They deleted their online anonymous connection app. Donors can no longer join what's called FamLink now at Zytex. So I have no way of communicating with the rest of these families. Um, Now, that said, many of them may not want connection just yet, even though their children will thank them as soon as they do. But it's something that DCP Data is attempting to solve here. Is let's make these connections for everybody and make it very much easier for donors themselves to report health information.
Yeah.
In your experience, what has been the most rewarding aspect of connecting with donor conceived people and their families? That's a question for both of you.
It's to me it's making the memories. It's fielding a question about their children's. Hey, my child has a rash here. Can you tell me about your father's psoriasis? And I say, yeah, absolutely. And it's the peace of mind that comes from them knowing, oh, I can just reach out when something is going on. If they couldn't do that, I can only imagine what they would go to the doctor with, and how frantic that might make them feel. But beyond being able to show up in that way, I really just feel like making just it feels like hundreds of beautiful memories just in the last few years. Simply playing with the kids and showing up. And I don't necessarily think that every donor needs to go about it exactly the same way that I am going about it. I believe there are many, many ways to show up. I mean, I play video games with the kids once a month on Roblox, an online gaming platform. I do video calls with them occasionally. However you can show up, I is really, really important for the kids. Um, in, and beyond that, I would say, there are a lot of goodbyes here because there's so many. And these goodbyes, it's an important time for me to manage the expectations and emotions of the kids, or do what I can to support them, and to express my love and yeah, just communicate how proud of them I am, etc. So despite with all of these wonderful memories that are being created, there are further opportunities in the many difficult goodbyes to connect more deeply. So, I mean, I just have a bank of knowledge, and I'm racking up quite a collection of children's art over here.
I have a question. Dylan, knowing what you know now, if you could go back and do it over, would you make this many donations and have this many children?
I would have donated very differently. I absolutely would have donated. It's an incredibly enriching experience. It needs to be done correctly, though. So I would have done a lot more research about the bank that I was donating with and about the industry as a whole. And I likely would have found a good lawyer to draft an airtight private donor contract agreement and helped a specific number of families, far fewer than I did at the
What do you
time.
think that number should be? I've heard 10. What do you
Yeah, 5 or 10.
5 or 10?
5
I
or
would
10.
I like the idea of 5. I always say ideally I would like to see a 5 family limit. My negotiating number would be 10. But I would want to start it. I would ideally want it to be 5.
Yeah. It's I know that it costs a lot of money for me to travel and see the kids like I am doing, and they're all over the world. So, I can't just jet out to Australia to see the kids out there whenever I feel like it. So that means that those kids out there are spending 2 years at a time not seeing me in person. And that's not easy for me. It's certainly not easy for them. So if we kept it to 5, then I would be able to see the kids a lot more often. I would be able to have the amount of touch points with them that they have expressed wanting. They'll say, "Hey, can we do a weekly call?" And I'm like, that would be a full-time job for me if I did that with everybody. So yeah, keeping it to a limited number means that the connections that all the research shows lead to the best mental health and physical health outcomes. That being when a donor is known to their biological children. Yeah, all of that would be more manageable at 5.
I
But
know
when
that
you
there's
signed up to be a donor, you didn't sign up to be an active participant in these children's lives. They're supposed to be being raised by their single mother, by their same-sex parents, by their male-female parents. So what makes you feel so responsible for taking an active role in these children's lives?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. I think a lot of our viewers are going to want to know that part. Like, why are you taking a role in their lives? This is not what you signed up for. You signed up to be an anonymous donor.
so I signed up to be an open ID donor, which means that my identity
That's right.
would be protected until the children turned 18. So I was aware that at some
That's right.
point in time they were going to reach out. They reached out well before the children turned 18, and I'm really, really happy they did, because it gave me the understanding that I now have, which is that no, I did not sign up to show up for these kids in this way. But as soon as I recognized that the kids were coming home after, in the States right now, Father's Day is being celebrated on Sunday. So if schools are still in session, then all week this week they're doing Father's Day activities. And these children of single mothers and two women couples are having the nuclear family sort of shoved down their throats, and it's not
Yeah.
fair to the kids. So they're coming home and they're saying, "Who is my father? Is donor Dylan my father?" You know, and I can't imagine the families who haven't connected with me or reached out what they're going through. It's just a lot of confusion that I recognized I had the opportunity to end for many people. And like I said, when I saw the image of the first little girl there, my chemistry changed. That happened over and over again. That I had this evolutionary response to seeing these children who look a lot like me. Um, of I want to help support this child's growth in any way that I can, and I had no idea what way that was going to be. And it's evolved over time, and it's going to continue evolving. But I don't know if what I'm doing is the right thing, but I say I know that turning my back on the kids was the wrong thing. So it's a matter of showing up for them in the ways that I can, and whether it's expected or not, this is my life now, and I'm, honored to be included in the lives in some way. I don't consider myself a
Yeah.
parent. I'm a donor. That's something very different, but it's something that each family gets to define with me, and each family has a different definition of, and it's each one is beautiful and evolving.
I
Right.
want to pick both you and Laura's brain for a second, because as a genetic genealogist that works a lot of DCP cases, when because we may have viewers that are donor conceived that have not yet reached out to their donor, but they know who it is. So what are y'all's thoughts on the best way to approach that donor to get the best possible response back? Do you
Well,
suggest
I
email,
mean,
phone call? What do you suggest?
I would caution a phone call. I think I would suggest not doing a phone call. Speaking as somebody who's not had luck, I think it is better to do a email or a letter, letting the person have some time to sort of sit with it, because it is going to be a shock. Because many of the donors signed up to be anonymous, and they had like, this is just not something they expected. It's also something that, I know this sounds super silly, they may have forgotten, literally, or just literally put it in the back of their heads, and they might not react well in the moment, and you need to give them like a moment to sit and think about it. So I think taking that pressure of them of acting in the moment is a good idea. I think really reiterating that, like, you don't want you I know that, again, this sounds silly because we all know it's not true, but I do think reiterating, like, I don't want anything like financial from you is a very good thing. That's a big reason that a lot of donors don't reach back out, is they're scared, like, oh shit, are they coming after money? When it's like, no, we can't literally legally do that. Come on, dude. Like, use your brain. But a lot of them, I think, and it's such a false narrative that the industry has been putting out, is that, like, we can come after inheritance, which is like the most bogus thing in the world. So I do think, unfortunately, underlining, saying like, look, I just want to like get my medical history, whatever it is you're looking for. Yeah, I want my medical history. I would just love to be able to like have a conversation. I just have some questions, whatever it is. And just know, and this would be my thing that I would tell every donor conceived person, I can't guarantee you what's going to happen. I have no idea what will. You might get no answer. You might get an answer. They might be an awesome person. They might be a horrible person. I have no idea. But whatever the truth is, it exists. So I am in a big favor of just send the message. You will, in my opinion, have a much greater chance of regretting not sending it than regretting getting an answer that you don't like. At least you know. And I think that and like, look, you can join the rest of us with the like, my donor hasn't called back, my donor's a horrible person. Join the club. Like, we can all sit and have a drink together. But I'm grateful that I know. Even though that hurt to find that out, I'm still grateful I knew. And I at least know a little baby bit about him, and that is good for me. And it just even though it hurts, it still is healing in a weird way.
And I can speak more to recipient parents with younger children reaching out, and give a bit of the donor's perspective here. But what I often let folks know is how I was found. The recipient parent actually followed me for several months before choosing to reach out. So I think that was really helpful context for them. I was really going through a hard time in my life actually when they first started following me. So what they did for those several months there was collect information about what's going on in my life and whether or not it's the right time to reach out. So if you can triangulate as much as possible where they're at in their lives, do they have children of their own that they're raising? If so, this is going to hit them very differently. I had just gotten divorced and was on my own and isolated during the pandemic. So I had a very specific set of circumstances where I was like, oh, I have nothing but time, nothing but, openness in my life to consider something like this. And I think the recipient parent figured that out over time and chose to reach out at exactly the right time. And, just expressing gratitude first and foremost. And I would, some people think that sending a picture of the children is manipulative, but I think it's manipulative not to, I think I think it's so important for the children to have their best shot at connecting with their genetic parent that send a message on socials so that they have the option to click over to your profile and see the pictures of their biological children, and they will make a more informed decision that way.
Well, to wrap this up, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to point out to our viewers? Anything in legislation that's going on, or?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things. I think everybody, please go follow at Eve Wiley. Eve is sort of our champion when it comes to fertility fraud legislation. Fertility fraud is when a doctor switches out the chosen donor gametes for their own or any other that they feel like. We've gotten this legislation passed in a few states, but we're trying to get fertility fraud criminalized federally. So it is HR 451. And please always make sure, because there are a couple of other fertility fraud bills floating around, make sure that you always back the fertility fraud legislation that was written by the victims, which is HR 451, which was written by the victims and it is backed by the victims. And it is a very narrowly tailored bill. It is bipartisan. We have I think 50 co-signatories already on it. And it puts in a 10-year statute limitation on finding out you're a victim. It's a very, very well written bill. I think they're probably still going to be doing some edits to it, but it's great. And it's on its way to be getting passed. So go follow Eve to learn how you can support. Also, obviously, always go follow USDCC. They are always working on new legislation in terms of family limits, anonymity. So I think they are also a great resource to follow as well. I think, and I literally had a chat today with somebody just found out their donor conceived, and I told them, and I tell this to all donor conceived people who just find out, be kind to yourself. Be very kind and take things at your own pace, and allow yourself to feel whatever it is you feel. There's going to be a lot of people telling you how you should feel about your donor conception. No. This is your story. This is your body. And even if somebody has good intentions and they are trying to make you feel better, you handle this the way that it is right for you, and know that your community is here and waiting for you and will be supportive to you. That is one thing that I am utterly grateful for, is the community of donor conceived people, which I include recipient parents and donors in, including donor Dylan, including all of you guys. It is the best freaking community. It is filled with wonderful, beautiful, empathetic human beings that are just genuinely trying to make the world a little bit better. And I am so grateful that I get to work to help support my community.
And I'll just say quickly, follow Laura High 5.
I follow Donor Dylan too.
And and why I say that is because what we need to start doing as a society a lot better is listening to donor conceived adults, because they have all of the experiential information that recipient parents of young donor conceived people can benefit greatly from. So if my story hit the mainstream and people started paying attention to this, I don't know half as much as Laura High here. Listen to them, listen to USDCC. They're all donor conceived adults, like
Mhm.
really, really smart people too. So let's lean to them on these issues, and like I do.
Fantastic.
We will have links to all of these in the description box, by the way.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a great episode. I've actually learned some things that I wasn't aware of. So very enlightening.
Yay! Oh, thank you for having us. Thank you guys so much. You all are seriously you're always the first person that I tell donor conceived people to go to. It's like, look, if you're ready for this journey, call DNA Angels up. They're there. They're the best. So thank you for being such a pillar in our community.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing.
You're
It's
welcome.
our pleasure. And I think it's a mutual admiration society, too. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have you or someone you know had an unexpected discovery after taking an at-home DNA test? Perhaps you are adopted or a donor-conceived person? DNAngels is founded on the principle that it is a fundamental human right to know who our biological parents are. Our mission is to promote family connections by providing support, guidance, and expertise to individuals facing the complexities of non-paternal events, donor conception, or adoption. DNAngels, finding families one DNA strand at a time.
That was different, wasn't it?
Yes, it's very enjoyable. You know, I talk to Dylan over email and private messenger, but being able to
Right.
speak, to see his face and speak is a nice change.
Right.
And then I follow Laura on social media, so I already feel like I knew her just from watching talks. So,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead, because I was going to talk about the obituary. So, what was your thought?
Right. So that's what I was going to say. I said that was just a pretty heavy topic. So, I was thinking, let's not do an obituary today because we went pretty long.
Yeah.
But no, let's do an obituary because this is just a really funny one.
Did you find a gem?
Yes. So anyway, everybody, thank you for watching. Please don't forget that it is Christmas in July. We are raising funds to make sure that we keep the lights on here at DNA Angels for the next year. You can donate at dnaangels.org/donate. But to end this today, at age 35, died peacefully at home on November 25th after complications from a radioactive spider bite that led to years of crime fighting and a year-long battle with nefarious criminal named Cancer, who has claimed our society for too long. And I'm sorry, I didn't give the name. It's Aaron. His name is Aaron. Civilians will recognize him best as Spider-Man and thank him for many years of service protecting our city. His family knew him only as a kind and mild-mannered art director, a designer of websites and T-shirts and concert posters who always had the right cardigan and the right thing to say, even if it's wildly inappropriate. Aaron was known for his long, entertaining stories, which he loved to repeat often. In high school, he was in the band The Asparagus Children, which reached critical acclaim in the northern suburbs. As an adult, he graduated from the College of Visual Arts, which also died an untimely death recently, and worked in several agencies around Minneapolis, settling in as an interactive associate creative director at Coley plus McVoy. Aaron was a comic book aficionado, a pop cultural encyclopedia, and always the most fun person at any party. He's survived by his parents, Bill and Kim Kumar, father Mark Pormore, plus Patricia Ottoman Alley, his sisters, and his sisters Erica and Nicole. First wife Gwen Stefani, current wife Nora, and their son Ralph, who will grow up to avenge his father's untimely death. A service will be held on December 3rd, 2014. I maybe should have practiced that. That had me kind of tongue-tied.
Gwen Stefani is my husband's celebrity crush.
Right. I'm sure she is for many people. Poor Blake Shelton.
Yeah. Well, I want to remind everybody to hit subscribe and please like and make a comment on this video. That helps the algorithm and gets us a little bit more exposure. We really want to be able to help people that have found themselves adopted or in these type of NPE situations. We want to give them a place where they feel safe. And I know when I've been working cases and closing cases, I did an adoption case just the other day. And she's so nervous about reaching out, and so I gave her a link to Vicky's story. So I'm actually really, it's very rewarding to do this.
I agree. It is. It is.
Well, with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. We're at an hour. Let's say goodbye, and we will see you on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.